Good evening, everyone. So begin by bringing into mind the expression of homage that Master Nagarjuna offers to Buddha Shakyamuni, who says, I prostrated to Buddha Gautama, who taught dependent origination for the sake of all sentient beings. Buddha Shakyamuni came into this world 2,500 years ago. He enacted, or he went through the series of engaging in the 12 deeds of the Buddha, and in particular in the enlightened activity of teaching the Dharma. So he taught very extensively. He taught the 84,000 bundles of teachings, exactly according to the disposition, the mental capacity, the interest of every sentient being. All these extensive teachings were given for the sake of sentient beings. And by relying on these teachings and by following those teachings on wisdom, talking about selflessness, teachings about great compassion, bodhicitta, and all the stages of the path, millions and millions of followers reach the state of Buddhahood. And beyond that, many reach the state of an arhat as a hearer, or the state of an arhat as a solitary realizer. Many generated renunciation, compassion, bodhicitta, correct view in their minds, just relying on these teachings. So just keep into mind that from this very extensive presentation of the 84,000 bundles of teachings, we consolidate this down into the presentation of the Prajnaparamita text. This can be consolidated down into the lamp of the path with its various Lam Rim commentaries, notably the Lam Rim Chenmo, the great exposition of the stages of the path, and so forth. So Geshe is now inviting everyone, even for a couple of seconds, to meditate, thinking, for I will study this, I will practice this, I aspire to reach the state of Buddhahood in order to benefit and liberate all mother sentient beings who are as vast as the vastness of space. So just think like that for a couple of seconds. So it is like this, as we say, we have this aspiration and say, for the sake of all sentient beings who are as vast as the vastness of space, I will reach the state of Buddhahood in order to benefit all of them. And in order to achieve this, I want to study something, I want to practice something, and in particular here, the subject matter of this class is, as I say, is the Song of Spiritual Experience by Je Tsongkhapa. Be aware that this is a text that actually consolidates all the great teachings of all the classical texts of the great panditas and scholars in India, of all the classical works. So it's important to keep in mind what was the reason why did the Buddha give all these teachings? Did the Buddha give these teachings because he wanted to be famous, because he had he wanted to be known as being a great orator or someone who is very powerful with many followers and so forth? That was not the case. All the teachings that the Buddha gave and every activity that the Buddha engaged in was from a very long time done spontaneously. Spontaneously here indicates that it was done without requiring for him to set a specific motivation, without requiring for him to engage any intellectual process and think about it long and hard. So he was always acting spontaneously out of the strength of his great compassion for all sentient beings. It is the exact opposite of us. Even if we make the decision to help some other person or some other being in a very small way, we will spend quite a long time deliberating about it, thinking about it, weighing the pros and the cons. But this is not the case of the Buddha. The Buddha spontaneously acts for the benefit of others due to the power of his incredible bodhicitta. So those teachings that were given by the Buddha, it's very important to understand the reason why they were given. They were given in order for us to overcome those incredible imprints of ignorance that we have, to overcome the 5 types of wrong views, the 5 types of non-views, all of those faults. And the question is, how can we actually eliminate those? It is, one cannot make a rule, like the Buddha didn't make a rule and say, oh, you are forbidden to do this. Or one cannot give money to someone and say, okay, I give you this money, you have to abandon your own views, and so forth. It didn't work like that. The means by which the Buddha worked was to teach. And it was through the blessing of the Buddha that although the Buddha spoke in the language of the time, which was Sanskrit, that language was understood, or his teaching was understood exactly according to the capacity and the needs of whoever was in the audience. And therefore his teachings was understood simultaneously in various different languages. The gods heard the teachings in the language of the gods. The Nagas heard it in the Naga language. The humans heard it in the human language, and so on and so forth. So by listening, contemplating, and meditating on all these teachings, great benefit came to all those beings. And this is why Master Nagarjuna says, I prostrate to Buddha Gautama, who taught to myriads sentient beings according to their needs. So obviously, when the Buddha first taught his teachings in India, at that point there were no teachings, as he was the founder, right? Although there were many people in India, they did not accept his teachings straight away. And this was something that Buddha Shakyamuni himself encouraged. He has said, monks and scholars do not accept my teachings because I say so, but rather examine them the same way that we examine gold, by rubbing, cutting, and through fire. And if you find them to be solid, then accept them. So he's giving here the example of examination for gold. Of course, if you want to buy some gold, you would not accept anything that is offered to you. You would like to examine it. And this is what the Buddha has said. Obviously, there are many teachings. There were many teachings back in India at the time of the Buddha, and even now in the 21st century, we have many teachers of various philosophies and various traditions. But those with intelligence who investigate things will come to understand what an amazing and exceptional teacher is Buddha Shakyamuni. Because the message of Buddha Shakyamuni is that it's very important to benefit others, to give up our preoccupations about ourselves, and always make sure that we take care of others, because all our happiness and all our well-being comes from others. So this is a very strong message, and it is also combined with the message of dependent origination that very clearly says you cannot stand by yourself, you cannot stand alone, you have to depend, you have to rely on others. There is nothing, no phenomenon, no living being that exists on its own, from its own. You have to rely and depend on other things. Of course, it's very interesting to see that at the time of the Buddha, there were very strong let's say, teachers of other religious or other philosophical schools, non-Buddhist schools. For example, we had the enumerators. We have two sub-schools in the enumerators. And the thing is that they believe in a God creator. If we look at other religious systems, such as Hinduism and Muslim and also Christianity and so forth, everywhere you will find that universal message of love and compassion, which is very good, right? This is something that we find in all religious systems. But the thing is that all of these other systems also at the same time talk about a God creator. So once you start talking about a God creator, it means all of my happiness, all of my suffering, everything that happens in my life is created by this God creator. So this is the big point of difference between them and us, because in Buddhism, we do not accept the existence of a God creator. We believe in the law of cause and effect. So whatever happens in this life, whatever experience I have, good or bad, this is definitely the result of karma. So it's there is a very strong message, as we say, of affection and compassion. Here we have to differentiate between the two. Affection is different from compassion, but it's also important to see how in Buddhism we put so much emphasis in analyzing, trying to find the correct causes that will bring the development of compassion. So, for example, if you meditate thinking, when you observe the suffering of others, if you meditate thinking, may they be free from suffering. So the more you meditate like this, the more you think like this, does this become the cause for generating compassion? The more you analyze those things in greater depth, in greater detail, the stronger the power of your mind becomes. So to give you an example, when you observe someone who is lacking both arms, and you look at this person and you say, oh, how difficult their life must be. But then if you analyze it, you start thinking, how does this person eat their food if they don't have arms? How does this person wash themselves if they don't have arms? At night when they go to sleep, how do they cover themselves, with a blanket? Or how do they pull away the blanket if they don't have arms? Like if you start thinking like this, you see more and more of the suffering of this person. So to give you an example, if let's say you're feeling unwell one day and you go to the hospital, but then when you go to the hospital, you see all these other people who are gathered there, and some of them are much more have more serious conditions than yourself. So imagine someone comes in who has been involved in a car accident, and they come in with serious cuts all over the body. They have blood all over the body. You look at them, and then you almost forget why you went to the hospital, because in comparison to this other person's suffering, your illness or your suffering appears to be very small. This is actually an example of how when we focus on the suffering of others, the more insignificant appears to be our own suffering, our own personal situation. And this is how we rely on this type of training in order to develop this very strong feeling of cherishing others and suppress cherishing ourselves. Actually, this development of affection, of compassion, of care, of cherish for others is what is the essence of all this training of the teachings in the Lam Rim. Okay, so this idea of cherishing others is very important in Buddhism. It is very important because all our happiness and everything that we enjoy comes from others, right? So, for example, you want to make some food, you might have some money, but you need to go to the food store, give some money to some person who is selling food, who has grown the food, or who is, trading in food, and you have to bring in all the ingredients and make the food. Or if you want to talk about, you have become a very successful person, it's because of your education. Where did this education came? It came from the kindness of your teachers, and so on and so forth. Everything that we have and everything that we have achieved, 80%, if not more, comes from others. 20% certainly it is from our own efforts, but the majority, overwhelming majority, comes from others. Others keep providing to us. There's some people who have this idea that say, I am self-made. Like this, nothing could be further from the truth. You are not self-made, right? Your parents actually established your body, your physical body. Your mother had to carry you for 9 months. Then she had to give birth to you. When you were very young and you were totally helpless, she had to clean you, she had to feed you, she had to dress you, provide all the clothes and so forth. She had to take care of you and make sure you reach a certain age. At a certain age, she made every effort to send you to the school. And then from that point onwards, also your teachers joined in the effort. And it is through their kindness that you received some education. And once you were at the school, everything that you needed from your textbooks, your notebooks, your pen, your pencil, all of those things, they came from others. They were provided from others. Right, so everything we have, everything we have used comes from others. Then again, there are those people with very strong self-cherishing that keep thinking, I don't need anyone, I'm independent because I have money. But even if you have the money, where did your money come from? And how are you going to spend your money if you do not rely on others? Right? So keep that in mind, how important it is to cherish others. And when you go out, every time you leave your house and you go out, make sure that when you encounter other people, you always have a very pleasant expression, and you treat other people respectfully, politely, joyfully, and so forth. It doesn't matter how they treat you, it doesn't matter how they look at you. When you look at them with a pleasant, smiling face, because that would make your mind much happier. Otherwise, if you go out with this unhappy, suspicious mind, thinking that everyone dislikes you or everyone is trying to sabotage you, then you start looking at other people with suspicion and, and so on and so forth. Due to these types of thoughts, your mind will become totally upset. And as a result of this, the elements will become upset. Before you know it, you won't be able to digest properly your food. You won't be able to sleep peacefully at night and so forth. So you become disturbed, what we describe as disturbed. All right. So this is how it comes. Therefore, it is very important that we engage the essence of the practice of the Lam Rim, which is the essence of the 84,000 bundles of teachings of the Buddha, as part of our practice. So all of this that we are discussing here is not strictly Dharma. It is just general advice about the behavior of our behavior in society. That main advice that says try to cherish others, do not pick up fights, do not cause disturbance, and so forth. We say many things, we have many thoughts about ourselves, like, oh, I'm too hot, oh, I am ill, I'm this, I'm that, all of this, everything that we experience is due to our afflictions, isn't it? And if we look at it in a bigger scale, all the horrible things that happen in the world, and these days we have to talk about war, the war that is happening around the world is a result of that brings so much suffering is the result of the 5 types of views and other afflictions that are not views, such as our hatred, our attachment, our ignorance, our pride, and so on and so forth, isn't it? There is no such a thing as an enemy that is external. So why is this war raging, isn't it? So all of this suffering that is created, and all the weapons are created out of a mind that is unhappy and undisciplined. Right. Everybody is buying those weapons. People are dealing in weapons. They're inventing new weapons. And they always say, oh, it's only for defense purposes. It's only to defend the country. But it is not this, right? And the thing is that these weapons, they do not appear naturally. It's not like vegetables that grow out of the earth. Those weapons were created by humans who have minds that are undisciplined and disturbed. Now, thank goodness Singapore is a very peaceful place, so you don't have to worry about the atrocities of war. But if you think about all those people who suffer in the war zone, how much fear is during the 24 hours a day constantly for these people who live in a war zone? How much fear during the night, during the day, and so on and so forth, isn't it? Just consider where do those things come from? So often we experience happiness according to the state of our mind, but whatever happiness and well-being we experience now, it's important to understand that it is not something which is stable. It's something which changes. In reality, it is in the nature of suffering, but we label it as well-being. We label it as happiness. So to give you an example, you come here, and when you first come here, you feel so happy, so relaxed. But the longer you stay here, the more uncomfortable you will be. If I told you that you have to sit here for 2 hours, 3 hours, it will be painful in your knees, in your hips, and so forth. You come from the outside, which is hot. You come inside, we turn on the air conditioning. Initially, it is very pleasant because it is nice and cool. But the longer you stay in the air conditioning, the colder you get. It becomes uncomfortable. So that shows that whatever we enjoy and we feel, it's pleasure, it's well-being, in reality, it is suffering. It is in the nature of suffering. And this is why it changes and becomes obvious that it is suffering. But the important thing is to keep in mind that we can always change the mind. And when we say change the mind, we mean we can improve the mind. We can develop more love. We can develop compassion. And again, that development of love and compassion relies upon others. We have to focus upon others in order to be able to generate love and compassion, isn't it? And if we don't generate this love and compassion, we won't be able to generate bodhicitta. And if we don't generate this bodhicitta, we won't be able to create the cause for this ultimate state of the final achievement of Buddhahood. So even the Buddhahood that the Buddha attains is something that depends upon others. So whether you are someone who is a religious person or whether you're not a religious person, it doesn't matter. The main principle is to always cherish others. So when we say to always cherish others and don't cherish yourself, it doesn't mean that you have to neglect yourself. So for example, you see sometimes people make that mistake, kind of like beginners make this mistake when they practice generosity and they want to give everything away. But actually, as beginners, we cannot do this. We cannot give everything away. You would need money if you need to go to the hospital. You need money because, let's say, you have relatives or you have other kids, you have other dependents that you need to support. So you cannot give away all of your money. We have responsibilities, isn't it? However, what we can do and what the advice that is given to us is to try to minimize our desire and to try to develop as much content as possible. So to have a great desire, it means I have one house, but one house is not enough. I want to have two houses. I want to have three. I want to have four houses. I have one car, but one car is not enough. I want to have two cars. I want to have 5 cars, right? I have thousands in the bank, but that is not enough. I want to have millions and so forth. Sometimes you see such incredible excesses in India, right? But elsewhere as well. So that was having great desire. So we must try to reduce this. The other one is not being contented, meaning not being contented with what you have. You already have something, let's say your mobile phone, for example, or your car or whatever, which is working very well. It's a very good model. It works very well. But then you hear that a new model has come in the market. So now all of a sudden, you're not contented with what you have. You're not satisfied. You need to upgrade. You need to get the one better. Okay. So these are the 2 factors that we need to keep under control. And you see, Buddha Shakyamuni made the rules, very skillful rules, to try to minimize attachment and great desire, especially to the ordained. So he said the ordained, he made the rules that the ordained live through receiving alms. Okay, so it means they don't have their own money or their own food. They go out every day with a begging bowl, and whatever the community offers to them, this is what they receive as food, and this is what they eat. As for the begging bowl is not made of any precious substance, so it's not made of gold, it's not made of silver, it's just made of a very basic clay material. In terms of the clothes of the ordained, they do not wear new clothes, they wear pieces of clothes that other people have discarded in the rubbish. So they take it, they wash it, and then they make a garment out of it. In terms of their abode or accommodation, they sleep in the forest. And so also, they do not grow mustache or beard and so forth, because it actually takes quite a lot of effort and then pride to grow those things and maintain those things. So you can see the Buddha was extremely skillful by giving these rules to the community. The main thing is all of those rules are there in order to minimize attachment as much as possible, because once your attachment and your desire is unchecked, it means out of attachment there will come hatred, there will come jealousy, there will come pride, and so forth. So it's it's very good to keep those things as at the very minimum, as much as possible. So it's very important to see what the Buddha very skillfully taught, those 84,000 bundles of teachings, all the stages of the path, which are an excellent path. And all of those things are things for us to put into practice. It's very important to generate that attitude that all of this was taught about me so that I could put it into practice. Otherwise, often we treat it as something which was taught at a different time, at a different place for some other people, so that somehow it was not given directly for me. It's quite the opposite. We have to generate this attitude to say, whatever Buddha Shakyamuni taught, he taught it for me. Whatever Manjushri taught, he taught for me. Whatever Maitreya taught, he taught it to me. Whatever Master Nagarjuna has taught, he has taught it exclusively for my sake. It's for me to put it into practice. It's not the case that they gave all these great beings, they gave those teachings, I don't know, in India, in China, here, there, because some other people were over there at that time were misbehaving. So it was for their sake. No, it is for me. I must have done things wrong. I think this advice is for me. So I need to practice those things. Even though I might be happy right now, I understand that this is no stable happiness. And what I'm seeking for is the stable, constant happiness of liberation and omniscience. And for that purpose, I need to study those stages of the path. Okay, so we are studying here this particular text, the Song of Spiritual Experience by Lam Tsongkhapa. We know that it is text, one of the three Lam Rim texts of the stages of the path that Lam Tsongkhapa has composed. It is the shortest one. Those texts have been composed as a result of becoming difficult to understand the meaning of the lamp to the path that was the initial text composed by Master Atisha. So we see in this text that Rinpoche begins by paying homage. In the first verse, he paid homage to Buddha Shakyamuni. In the second verse, pays homage to Maitreya and Manjushri. In the third verse, homage to Nagarjuna and Sangha. And then in the fourth verse, he's paying homage to Master Atisha. The reason why usually the composition begins by paying homage is, first of all, is to clear away obstacles. Second, to build up accumulation of merit. And thirdly, to make sure that the composition is actually completed. There are many times where authors have started composing a text, but they never come into completion. So to overcome this particular difficulty, it's very good to offer homage at the very beginning. Now, if we read verse 4, that is the verse that pays homage to Master Atisha, it says, excellently stemming from these two great trailblazers are the two paths of profound view and vast practice, the custodian of the treasury of instructions, preserving all key points of these paths without error, or Dipankara Atisha, I pay homage to you. So, as we know, Master Atisha went to Tibet. How he went to Tibet was because he received instruction from Tara, from Venerable Tara. Atisha had a special relationship with Venerable Tara. So those of you who have actually gone into Bodh Gaya, to the right side, if you veer off to the right side of the main temple, you will find a statue of Tara. And that was the statue that actually gave the advice to Master Atisha. Before going to Tibet, Atisha, he was actually at that time, he was a great scholar at Vikramalashila, but he was invited to go to Tibet. So he asked Tara's advice, and he said, would it be beneficial if I go there? Is it good? Should I undertake that trip? And Tara said, you're going there for the sake of sentient beings, and that is very good, but you'll have to bear in mind that because the conditions in Tibet are different. So, for example, the weather is much colder than it is in India, and the food is very different. So you won't be able to have, the vegetables, fruit and vegetables that you eat here. Your diet will not be the same. And as a result of these difficulties, your life span will shorten by 20 years. However, Master Atisha, when he heard that it would be good to go, because Tara said, yes, there will be benefit for the sake of sentient beings, he definitely came to Tibet. And the greatest activity when he came to Tibet was that he composed that famous text, the Lamp to the Path. So, as it says here, it describes Master Atisha as being the custodian of this treasury of instructions. So actually, Atisha was the custodian of three lineages. They all come from Buddha Shakyamuni. So one is the lineage of instruction of extensive deeds that comes through Maitreya to Asanga to Master Selimpa. The other one is the lineage of profound view that comes from Manjushri to Nagarjuna to Vidyakokila and then to Atisha. And the third lineage that he has is the lineage of instructions that comes from Master Shantideva. So he had all three lineages of instruction. The text that he composed, The Lamp to the Path, is the text that presents the essence of the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha in an unmistaken and unmixed manner, right? So it's a very clear presentation, very orderly, and it's not missing anything. And this is why it says you are preserving all the key points of these paths without error. He is described to be a treasury of instructions. So usually when we talk about the treasury, we talk about a place, a big room, you know, where all the treasures are collected. And a teacher was a treasury of all three lineages of instructions. So to this, you know, to you, Atisha Dipankara, I pay homage. So Master Atisha actually composed this text, the Lamb to the Path, and he passed on the instructions of the Lam Rim to his disciple Je Tsongkhapa. From there, of course, we have a long lineage of great masters in Tibet, so that eventually this instruction came down to Lama Tsongkhapa. From Lama Tsongkhapa, the teachings disseminated to the three great monasteries, and eventually these teachings came down to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So Geshe was saying, I have received these instructions from His Holiness. So when there was a great Lam Rim, the transmission of the 18 Lam Rim texts, Geshe says I was there, I received all of this. And what I can say is that it was a great blessing that I have received this lineage of instruction. So this is all I'm saying. I'm not saying I have the entire realizations of the Lam Rim, but I'm saying I had the fortune to receive this distilled lineage, unbroken lineage of advice. We'll continue with the next verse, number 5, where it says, you are the eyes of seeing the myriad collection of scripture. You are the supreme gateway for fortunate ones voyaging to liberation. Stirred by compassion, you eliminate the most skillful approaches. O spiritual teachers, respectfully, I pay homage to you. As we say, from Master Atisha, the teachings passed down to Je Tsongkhapa and to many Kadampa lamas. So now, eventually, we come to this composition of Lam Rim Chenmo by Je Rinpoche and to the Song of Spiritual Experience. So this takes the Lam Rim Chenmo, or the Song of Spiritual Experience, is described here as the eyes for seeing the myriad collections of scriptures. So we have the myriad collection of scriptures referring to all the teachings of the Buddha and all the scriptures of the Indian masters, the Tibetan masters, and so forth. So it says Lam Rim Chenmo, or the Song of the Spiritual Experience, is like the eyes through which you can look at all of those scriptures. So, you know, if you have clear eyes, you can clearly see. If you're lacking the eyes, you're not able to see, you're not able to perceive those things. The second line says, you are the supreme gateway for fortunate ones voyaging to liberation. There are those who are interested, who are seeking, who are working or moving towards liberation. And for those, the gateway, again, is this Lam Rim teachings, right? And it says, you're stirred by compassion. You illuminate the most skillful approaches. This composition was not done as a way to, you know, outdone previous masters or to compete with other authors, teachers, and masters. It was motivated out of compassion to illuminate what is the most skillful means. And therefore, it says to all of those spiritual teachers, I respectfully pay homage to you. There is another interpretation of these lines. So where it says, you are the eyes for seeing the myriad collections of scripture, this can be taken to refer to the teacher. If you have a spiritual teacher, the teacher becomes the eyes through which you can see the scriptures, right? And also the second line where it says you have the supreme gateway for fortunate ones voyaging to liberation. Again, if you're seeking to go to liberation, your teacher becomes the gateway through which you will, complete your path. So it can be taken that all three lines refer to the spiritual teacher. Okay, we'll continue with the next verse, which is the verse that explains the greatness of this text or this teaching. So it says, verse number 6, so this instruction on the stages of the path to enlightenment flowed excellently in succession from Nagarjuna and Asanga, crown jewels of all the learned ones of this world. Your banners of fame flatter vibrantly among sentient beings. So you can see here how much Lama Tsongkhapa what a high esteem and respect he has from Nagarjuna and Asanga. Nagarjuna and Asanga had these high levels of realizations and great qualities. They had completed the grounds and the paths, and they were able to interpret the teachings of the Buddha and explain very clearly to us, disciples, what is interpretative teaching and what is definitive teaching. Without that level of qualities of realizations, they would not be able to make this distinction and explain it clearly to us. So this is why it says, amongst all the learned ones in this world, you're like the crown jewels, meaning you're the most valuable ones in this world. And your banners of fame flutter vibrantly. It says that this instruction flowed from Nagarjuna and Asanga. But then it says this instruction of the stages of the path. So when it talks about the stages of the path, it's not talking about the stages of the path as you go from the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, path of normal learning. He's not talking about that. He's talking about the stages of the path, starting as a complete beginner. Like, for example, when we started last week, when we started on the special day of turning the wheel of Dharma, right? So if that is your starting point, how do you go from that point all the way from to rely on the teacher all the way up to reaching the state of the Buddhahood? So these are the stages of the path that he's referring to. Okay, so it talks about here the stages of the path to enlightenment. So this is the Lam Rim, isn't it? So we talk about the text and we say this is the Lam Rim text. However, we are applying the name of the result into the cause. Yes. So what happens is that the text itself is not the teacher. The text itself is not refuge. The text itself is not the law of cause and effect, isn't it? However, the text, if you read that text, it will help you generate the realization of how to properly rely on the teacher, how rare it is to find the precious human rebirth, how death and impermanence, the law of cause and effect, going for refuge, and so forth, right? So these realizations that are the actual stages of the path are the result that come from reading that particular text. So we give the name of the result to the cause. The same thing that we call the Prajnaparamita text, we call them the mother. Why are they called the mother? They're not, in a physical sense, they don't give birth to anything. However, they give birth to the realization of the wisdom, realizing emptiness, right? So in that sense, what will come after you study those texts, you will develop the wisdom realizing emptiness. So for that reason, they're called the mother. So, be very, very clear about that. When you're holding the Lam Rim text in your hand, this is not the Lam Rim. This is just the text. In the past, it happened like this, that someone said, holding the text. I said, okay, so this is the Lam Rim text. So what you're saying is, I just have to read the text. I just have to read the Lam Rim text. That's not it. The Lam Rim text is not the realization. The Lam Rim text is just a text, is paper with printed words that actually indicates to you how you should practice. On the basis of your practice, by taking on these words as your practice, you sit down and think, for example, how rare it is to have a precious human rebirth. Right? And you have the realization. And then you go into the next subject and you have that realization. So these realizations are the actual stages of the path. The text is just the indicator, right? So for example, when we use the words water, it's not the real water that you drink. It's just the indicator of the concept. Okay, so we are running out of time. We need to wrap this up. So remember that we talked how important it is to generate affection and compassion for others. Every day, familiarize your mind by performing this revision meditation. It makes a difference. If you can do it earlier in the morning, the imprints are stronger and the blessing is stronger, and it makes a bigger impression into your mind. Okay, so we have done a few verses now, and then next time we will have a class. We will look at those verses, and then we will look at the commentary, the essence of refined gold, because it is good to marry the two together, the text and the commentary of the text to go together.